Hi everyone, I'm Maureen Wiley and I am a recovering perfectionist. While my day job involves teaching college students rhetoric and composition, I end up teaching them a lot about overcoming perfectionism and why it's so difficult to take a break. I'm a college professor and that means that I often get a long break in the summertime where I'm not teaching any classes and, more importantly, not grading any essays. However, I've really noticed over the years that sometimes it's quite hard to switch gears away from this go, go, go mentality and to slow down enough to take breaks and get some rest in a way that actually feels restorative and replenishing. In the past, as soon as I was on a break, I'd start making a list of things to do, things I wanted to accomplish, all those tasks that I wanted to get around to now that I wasn't going to campus each day and teaching classes. At the end of every summer, I was often disappointed by what I didn't manage to get done. And my thinking on the topic has really evolved over the years. And I've come to discover that if we want to actually do big things with our lives, we need to learn the important skill of rest. Obviously, when talking about rest, a lot of people think things like getting more sleep, which I'm a big fan of, taking naps perhaps, or even just lying down and doing something really passive like watching TV. I consider all of those things to be a form of rest, but that's not actually the type of rest that I want to talk about in today's video. The type of rest that I want to talk about is the kind of rest that we need if we are going to overcome our overwhelm, perfectionism, anxiety, and in some cases, our burnout. As a recovering overachiever / perfectionist, I am very familiar with the type of overwhelm, anxiety, perfectionism, and burnout that many of us struggle with, especially in the modern world where it feels like things never slow down and there's always something else we could be doing with our time. Then when we're given an actual break, many of us really struggle to slow down, really struggle to do less. And the reason for that is we might not actually be in the state where we can rest and feel safe, secure, and at ease. According to Polyvagal Theory, which is a concept introduced by the researcher Dr. Porges and is talked about a lot when it comes to overcoming things like burnout and perfectionism, there are 3 states which we can find ourselves in when it comes to the nervous system. Now, I talked about these states a little bit in my Spring Clean Your Brain last spring, so go ahead and check out that video if you're interested in some of those tips and tricks. But we're going to go into a deep dive today into these 3 states. First up, we've got the sympathetic nervous state. I find that most people who struggle to rest are in some form of sympathetic nervous system activation. This is often referred to as the fight or flight response. Fight or flight are nervous system states where we feel that there is some kind of threat to our survival. And a lot of people experience their lives in a chronic state of sympathetic activation, a chronic state of feeling that fight or flight response. It's important not to judge our nervous system states, and even more importantly, not to judge ourselves for being in specific nervous system states. So if you recognize that you often or even chronically are in a fight or flight nervous system activation, the first step to helping you to ground yourself is to not place any judgment on the fact that your body is in this state. In fact, you can thank your body for having this response because it's actually a survival mechanism. Think about it. When we were ancient humans and there was a threat to our survival, it made sense that our bodies responded by jumping into an activated state and either fighting off the threat or fleeing from it in flight. Sympathetic activation for a lot of people looks like an inability to slow down, and I notice for myself it's an inability to focus on one thing at a time. There is a lot of research about what we can do to reduce our nervous system activation out of this sympathetic activated state. My personal favorites are things like movement, including exercise, and I'm a big fan of singing, which actually stimulates the vagus nerve and helps us to regulate our nervous systems to no longer feel that we are in danger. A lot of other people also like to do things like shake their bodies or do a progressive muscle relaxation technique. Just see what works for you. There's a lot of different ways out there to regulate your nervous system when you're in a sympathetic activated state. My personal favorite is getting some exercise, in particular cardio exercise. To me, it makes sense from an evolutionary biology level, where if as an ancient human I felt under threat, then running away and completing the stress response cycle, allowing my body to do what it naturally wants to do, means that I can often reduce that sympathetic activation. Moving down the ladder of polyvagal theory nervous system states, we have the dorsal vagal state. This is the freeze state that I mentioned before. A lot of people are familiar with fight, flight, or freeze. The dorsal vagal represents that time when the body basically goes into shutdown. And this can sometimes happen as a consequence of being in a sympathetic activated state for an extended period of time. In fact, there's some research out there that's looking into the relationship between chronic states of stress and depression. And what some researchers are positing is that being in this constant sympathetic fight or flight activated state can over time lead the body into descending the ladder of nervous system states into dorsal vagal, and that is the shutdown, collapse, freeze mode that often looks like depression. For a lot of people, the dorsal vagal state of the nervous system can look like things such as dissociation or mindless scrolling. You're sort of glued to the couch, feeling glued to your screens, feeling binge watching TV, etc. Again, it's really important to keep in mind that this is the body in a protective state. Our bodies are very intelligent, and this is a survival mechanism that has been passed down for millions and millions of years throughout the generations. So if we want to create a kinder relationship to ourselves and to help ourselves to be able to not only recognize these nervous system states, but to collectively choose which nervous system state we'd like to enter, then we need to stop with judging those nervous system states as being something bad or negative or something that is wrong, or even worse for many people who struggle with depression, something that is their fault. So if you've ever had that feeling that you can't seem to pull yourself out of bed or the couch, and then you're layering on this self-judgment, that is a good and important place to start, and I'm going to be talking about that in my next video. What does it look like when we learn how to love and accept ourselves throughout the experience of our nervous system? One of the things I recommend is something called somatic tracking. You can check out my video on somatic tracking, and this is useful for people who experience the dorsal vagal shutdown and also for people who experience chronic pain. Because dorsal vagal states come after an extended period of high stress, high cortisol, one of the best possible ways to regulate your nervous system if you find yourself in a freeze is anything related to releasing oxytocin. And one of the best possible ways is through physical touch. Even if you're all on your own and you don't have anyone around that you can ask for an extended hug, which is something that the Gottman Institute recognizes as a way to reconnect with another person and enter into this safe and grounded space. But you can even just give yourself a hug. You'd be surprised how much you can feel the oxytocin start to flow when you touch yourself and give yourself a tender embrace. And finally, we have ventral vagal. This is known as the safe and secure state of our nervous system. For other people, it's often referred to as rest and digest, which, yes, it is an important element of the ventral vagal, that we are able to rest and relax and digest our food. If you think about it from evolutionary biology terms, this is the time when we are able to sit around the fire and enjoy a communal meal, feeling connected to those around us, and most importantly for our survival, to feel safe and secure in our group of people that have our back. When we are in ventral vagal, we feel safe, we feel secure, we feel connected to other people, and we also feel capable of stepping outside of our comfort zone. So when it comes to my students, I like to talk about ventral vagal as being the nervous system state where we can learn. We are able to pay attention to something, especially something that sparks our curiosity. If we're in a safe, secure, connected ventral vagal state, we're going to be more open to reaching out and connecting with others and the resources that are available to us. And in my opinion, when we are able to cultivate ventral vagal nervous system states, that's when we're able to get the kind of rest that actually is going to restore us and help us overcome any experience we might be having of overwhelm, anxiety, depression, and burnout. A lot of people want to learn how to be better at resting so that they can accomplish more and be more productive. And while I recognize that's a wonderful goal, and being in a ventral vagal state is what allows me to do things like make videos like this, next week I'm going to talk about why it's so useful to learn how to rest, not to be more productive, to learn how to do more things and achieve more in this life, but in order to enjoy the things that we already have in our lives and to enjoy our experience as we are in this moment today and build a new relationship with ourselves by cultivating the ventral vagal nervous system state. So I hope you'll tune into that video, and thanks for watching.